What's up, world? Welcome back to another episode of Just Grow It, the podcast. I'm your host, Big City Gardener, and today we are talking everything kale. So let's get to it. One of the trendiest foods that you see in the market right now is kale, and it's rightfully deserved. Kale is a highly nutrient-dense, dark leafy green, and it's also a superfood. And that's because it is extremely high in vitamin A, C, K, iron, just to name a few things. Just like other leafy greens, it is relatively easy to grow as long as you follow a few steps. So stay tuned to this entire episode, and by the end, you will be a kale growing expert. First off, let's talk about when to grow kale. Kale is a cool season crop that does extremely well in your fall and winter gardens. As long as you don't experience any extreme freezes, your kale should be able to produce throughout the entire winter. If you live somewhere like Zone 9 or Zone 10, then you're actually able to grow kale twice a year. You can grow it in the spring and in the fall. Fall-grown kale will always perform and taste better than spring-grown kale, and that's because kale prefers colder temperatures over warm ones. One reason I love growing kale is because you do not have to start the seeds indoors. You can sow kale seeds directly into the garden as long as you plant it at the right time. For fall harvest, you're going to want to plant your kale seeds outside at the end of the summer. And for a spring harvest, you're going to want to plant your kale seeds outside at the end of the winter, right before your last frost date. Now, if you're looking to start your kale seeds indoors to get a head start on the season, just make sure you start the seeds about 4 weeks before you plan on moving them outside to the garden. So now that we know when to plant kale, let's talk about where to plant your kale. Like most leafy greens, kale thrives in rich organic soil. Now, you want to make sure that this soil drains well. And like other vegetables, kale does not like its roots submerged in water. Kale prefers to grow in full sun. But let me give you a secret that I've learned from years and years of gardening. If you want the best tasting kale, then do this. Plant your kale where it receives partial sun, preferably where it receives afternoon shade. Now, this tip really applies more to spring gardening than it does fall gardening because a lot of fall gardens already receive partial shade. So keep that in mind whenever you're planning on planting your kale for the spring. Regardless of where you plant your kale, make sure that it receives at least 6 hours of sunlight. Now that's it for this episode of Just Grow It. Tune in to the next episode where we talk about some of the best kale varieties that you can plant in your garden. Peace. Before I let you go, I need you to do more than one thing. First, I need you to like, comment, subscribe to the podcast. Second, I need you to tell a friend or two about the show if you enjoyed it. And if you have anybody you think I need to talk to, I should interview, send the name over, put it in the comments, or send me an email, igrow@BigCityGardener. And check me out, man, on Instagram and on all social media platforms, Big City Gardener. We out. Oh, almost forgot. Just grow it.